Good evening, good day. The scene tonight's scene again set a new serum. Stefan returned home from his work shift at about 3 o'clock in the morning. He's been sitting at his workbench, continuing to carefully chisel away and sand the piece, this time a lot more carefully, as he's put some of the detail, the apparent the now apparent look of planks making up the hull, making up the deck. He's occasionally taking a break from the stonework, braided twine into, according to a guideline picture of his, into what is to look like marine grade rope for doing the rigging. He's been carefully dusting off with a large paintbrush the piece, more the interior, and onto his work mat, kind of leaning the stone a little bit to one side, very carefully. So I'm going to make, let's see, for his hour of work, I will make a wits and crafts roll. Brings the current total to 13 successes. He's gotten to a point where the railing running around the deck of this little stone boat, this model, this piece, is much more defined, or at least a little more defined, I should say. The planking is actually much more defined than it was, so a bit more detail in it. He's taken a Dremel at carefully measured points, to scale as best he could. I'll actually make widths and academics roll for the measurements, for the scale measurements. Yes, the making highly detailed measurements to scale for the position of the Dremel holes for the two masts, the main and the secondary. And then retrieving dust, or pulling the dust, moving the dust out of that hole with a smaller paintbrush, a lot finer, so as to not leave any debris for a better fit. as he's been working from the hour he got home to now, as the morning comes on, he looks back at his door, the door to his studio apartment, and realizes that he did not lock it as usual. He gets up from his stool at his workbench and fixes that. He engages the 3 locks in his door, as he usually does. Then walks back over quickly to his workbench to sit down to resume his work. When he sits down, he recalls the memories that have been going through his mind of the past hour, from 3 to 4 in the morning. One of the last and most poignant conversations he ever had with his mother before she was killed over dinner. On that night, she told him what his father's work, when they still lived in Germany, in Hamburg, was. And as the memory plays through his head again, no less vivid than the first time he ever had, or no less vivid than the first time the conversation took place. He realizes that, or he feels less accomplished than his father. Something within Stefan's psyche doesn't feel right. He doesn't feel like he's done any real important work. He knows elsewhere in his mind that isn't true, but his subconscious is almost taking over at this point. And he wishes they were still alive. He comes to a realization that he joined them technically about 10 years ago. If it wasn't for the fact that he's still technically, legally alive, the actual realization is that he's been dead for 10 years. He begins to question some of the aspects of his existence, but he knows that he cannot go down this route. As he feels a sadness welling up deep in his breast, or deep behind his breastbone, I should say. He starts to feel a welling in his eyes. He tries to fight, or he fights back the crimson tears He cannot afford any. He can't afford anything to happen to his work. He can't afford for anything to go wrong. He fights his conscious mind back at the same time. Memory still plays out. The end of the night happens. That was a birthday of his. Yeah. He, Stefan, continues his work as that memory fades. He continues. As he looks at his watch, he realizes it's 4:30. He has to get this done. It has to be ready by tomorrow. It has to be ready to go. It needs to be set up. I will make one more wits and crafts roll. This brings the total to 14 successes. He doesn't make too much more progress, um, save for starting to put the mass together, um, to place notches within the wood dowel, the primary wood dowel, and into the secondaries to fit them. Or no, he makes round notches into the primary wood dowel to fit the secondaries. All along 3 cross beams is what he places on both of the 2 masts of the ship. And he carves the rudder to put into place. Takes another piece of twine, smooths it out, releases the string a little bit. And places that into effect as a rudder chain. Does not actually affix it yet, but another memory comes to his mind as his work continues. He's gotten back home after a long work day. The details aren't too important. He remembers it just work. He had graduated by then. Yes, he graduated long before then. A police office, a couple police officers and a detective knock on his door. They ask if they can come in. Opens the door for them. They sit down. He offers them coffee. They accept the beverage, and he places a small tray of cookies or some other baked good onto the kitchen table where Stefan sits with the detective to speak with him. He finds out that the detective needs him to go down to the coroner's office to identify a body. Later on that day, shortly after that, I should say, He's standing in the coroner's office. He, he can't believe what he's seen. The face of his mother above a sheet covering the rest of her body. She looks peaceful. He asks what happened. The reply is simply a robbery turned homicide. Some witness accounts say she was on her way back home. People that knew her very well, people she had interacted with for years. Stefan applies his signature to two pieces of paper, walks out, and heads back to the apartment where he lived, or where he lived. The only reason he stuck around was to help his mother, help her out in her old age for all of the years of help that she had given him. Appreciation. He couldn't believe it. He questioned how this could happen to such a nice person, such a wonderful human being. He had no answers. He snaps back to the present. Memory fades from his mind slightly. He continues the work on the piece. This cargo ship. Propelled by power and sail. This merchant vessel. Bringing goods from one part of the world to the other. He looks down at the piece. He looks down at his work so far. Smiles. And he looks up a little bit. His eyes tracing along the piece and the walls. He smiles. Knowing that his parents are still looking down on him, no matter what, they're proud. As the scene slowly comes to a close.